4 months ago, I stumbled across a philosopher who claimed he had the scientific blueprint to create literal heaven and earth. I thought it was complete nonsense. But then I started reading his manifesto, and what I found absolutely changed my entire life. His name is David Pearce, and while most people were calling him a crazy lunatic, I was spending hours slaving away at my laptop studying his work. What I found was a concrete roadmap that will give you a life that aligns with your deepest desires and crack the code to generate lifelong happiness to every living being on the face of this planet. But before you even think about creating this reality, you need to completely shift your frame about building heaven on earth. You see, heaven and earth isn't only about humans. Humans, non-human animals, and ecosystems are all part of an interconnected system. If one of them isn't treated well, the whole chain falls apart. The mad cow disease outbreak in the 1990s that killed over 200 people came from feeding cows the dead body of other cows from factory farms, proving that animal cruelty is literally a matter of life and death for humans too. In the Bible, the prophet Isaiah described heaven as a place where the wolf shall lie down with the lamb. But what Isaiah didn't describe are the absolute horrors animals go through in the modern world. Every second, an estimated 2,442 non-human animals are killed for human use. And if you think all of these animals were killed painlessly, you'd be dead wrong. Most people imagine happy farm animals living in warm green grass before getting a quick, painless death. But that's not reality for the vast majority of animals that we eat. Instead, most animals spend their entire lives living in windowless warehouses. And when it's time to kill them, the process is often slow and brutal. 90% of the pigs killed in the US each year are slaughtered using the gas chamber, which literally kills pigs by taking away their breath. And given pigs have a similar capacity to suffer as humans do, it's clear we've got a large problem in our hands. So in order to create heaven on earth, David recognized that the first step was to create a pan-species welfare state. Right now, we have welfare systems for humans. If you lose your job, there's unemployment benefits. If you get sick, there's healthcare. The government steps in to prevent you from unnecessarily suffering. A pan-species welfare state is exactly that, but extended to every other species. David isn't talking about giving every squirrel a pension plan, at least not yet. More on that in part 3. He's talking about stopping the torture we've created through animal farming. And the plan is actually more straightforward than you might think. But to put this into action, we need to completely reimagine our relationship with food production. The first part of this transformation is the most obvious, but it's also the most neglected. And that's to shut down all factory farms and slaughterhouses. You see, many animal rights activists think you can just flip a switch and shut everything down overnight. But that would create massive resistance from everyone involved. The key is a planned transition over 15 to 20 years. Think of it like the way we ban leaded gasoline. First, we make the most brutal conditions illegal. Then, we give farmers money and support to switch to making food products that don't cause harm. Finally, we set a clear date when all factory farms must be closed for good. Since most politicians only care about money, don't show them what's right, show them what makes them rich. Thankfully, factory farming makes no economic sense. You have to feed cows 16 pounds of grain just to get 1 pound of beef. We're taking food that humans could eat and wasting most of it to make meat. But even with all of this coming into play, meat is just so tasty and ingrained in our culture that most people will never even give it up. That's why step 2 is to scale cultured meat production. This is where things get really interesting. Cultured meat, which is real meat grown from animal cells without killing animals, is already commercially available in Singapore and parts of the US. The cost has dropped by 99% in the last decade. But in order for this to really work, we need massive government investment in cultured meat research and production facilities. The most beautiful part is that there's literally no logical reason to go against cultured meat. It eliminates animal suffering, reduces environmental impact by 90%, and produces safer, more consistent meat products. Plus, once you scale it properly, it becomes cheaper than traditional meat, which means cultured meat can end world hunger. Countries that heavily invest in this technology now will dominate the global food market in 20 years. So it's also a huge opportunity to get filthy rich. So here's your actionable step. Look at this chart and incorporate one level into your life. If you're currently eating meat with every meal, start with level 1. If you're already vegetarian, push yourself to level 4. The goal is progress, not perfection. And look, even level 1 makes a massive difference when multiplied across millions of people. But there's something I haven't told you yet about why this matters so much more than just animal welfare. You see, Every single problem in human history can be traced back to one fundamental thing: suffering. In fact, if we didn't suffer, the word problem wouldn't even exist. Suffering is so large of an issue that even the Buddha dedicated his entire life to solving it. But many people understand suffering in the wrong way. We're sold this lie that suffering is necessary and that pain builds character. But that's complete nonsense. I'm talking about the deep, persistent suffering that millions of people wake up with every single day. There's absolutely nothing valuable about schizophrenia or deep-seated clinical depression. Nothing character building about bipolar disorder. And here's the thing that will blow your mind. We're actually on the verge of being able to eliminate most of the suffering completely. David calls this the hedonistic imperative. And before you roll your eyes like I did, this isn't about becoming hedonistic pleasure seekers who chase pleasure after pleasure like a donkey chasing a carrot on a stick. It's about using biotechnology to eliminate involuntary suffering for all living beings. And to understand how this works, you need to know about something called the hedonic set point. Imagine the hedonic set point as a thermostat for your house. When it gets hot outside, your AC kicks in to bring the temperature back down to 72. When it gets cold, your heater turns up to bring it back up to 72. Your brain works the same way with happiness. When good things happen, you feel amazing for a while, but then your brain's happiness thermostat kicks in and brings you back down to your normal level. This normal level is called the hedonic set point. When bad things happen, you feel terrible for a while, but again, your brain eventually brings you back up to your hedonic set point. The problem is, some people's hedonic set points are set really low. They're genetically wired to return to anxiety and depression no matter what happens in their life. But here's where it gets absolutely fascinating. Let me tell you about Jo Cameron. Most women rate the pain of giving birth as an 8 or a 9 out of 10. But when Jo gave birth to her daughter, she rated it at a mere 1 out of 10. And she's not some kind of Deadpool superhero. Jo's genes literally affect how her brain processes pain and fear. She's living proof that humans can exist with a dramatically different hedonic set point and still be completely functional. In fact, she might be even more functional than normal people because she's not held back by fear or useless pain. So if this is possible naturally through genetics alone, why wouldn't we want to give this gift to every child born on the planet? The first step to implementing David Pearce's hedonistic imperative is to have universal pre-implantation genetic screening. When couples can't get pregnant naturally, doctors can help them by creating several baby embryos in the lab. That's called IVF. Then they test each one to see which is healthiest before putting the best one in the womb. That's called pre-implantation genetic screening. Right now, this technology is only available to rich couples who have trouble getting pregnant, and doctors only check for dangerous conditions like cystic fibrosis. But David wants to make this available for everyone, and instead of only checking for diseases, we'd also look for genes that make people naturally happier and feel less pain. Using gene editing, doctors could also modify embryos to increase their hedonic set points before they're even born, which sets us up perfectly for step 2, optimizing the big 3 genetic variants. There are 3 main genetic systems we need to focus on. The first is the Fa gene. This controls how quickly your brain breaks down anandamide, which is basically your brain's natural bliss machine. Some people, like Jo, have certain versions of this gene that keeps them calm and blissful most of the time. Next is the Fa out gene. This works alongside Fa to control how much pain bothers you and how well you handle stress. The right version could prevent depression and help you bounce back from difficult situations. Finally, we have the SEN9A gene. Think of this as the volume knob for physical pain. Right now, most people's physical pain volume is set on high. They feel chronic pain that serves no useful purpose, like constant backache or headaches that make your life miserable. But pain isn't supposed to torture us. It's supposed to be a helpful warning signal. If you put your hand on a stove, for example, you feel pain, which makes you withdraw your hand from the stove. That's a useful pain. With a benign allele, which basically means a right version of the SEN9A gene, you'll feel less intense pain of any kind. You'd still feel it when you need to, like when you're about to get hurt, but it wouldn't be loud enough to ruin your day. Here's what I want you to do right now. Step 1. Go to your notes app and write down 3 instances of suffering in life that serve absolutely no productive purpose. Maybe it's social anxiety that prevents you from texting that smoking hot blonde girl. Maybe it's depression that stops you from pursuing your goals. Step 2. For each instance, ask yourself this question. If I had a child, would I want them to experience that same suffering? Step 3. Share this exercise with one person you trust. Don't preach to them about genetic engineering. Just ask them the same questions and see what they have to say. And if they say that they wouldn't want their child to experience the same suffering, share this video with them right now. The goal isn't to convince everyone to support genetic engineering tomorrow. The goal is to start normalizing suffering as a problem we can solve. But wait, there's something important that I haven't told you about yet. When most people watch a David Attenborough documentary showing a wolf pack hunting a hare, they think they're watching The Circle of Life. But in reality, they're watching a torture chamber that's going on for millions of years. And before you start pummeling me in the comments for all of the crazy claims I've been making in this video, please hear me out. Right now, as you're watching this video, billions of animals are being torn apart by predators, and we just accept this as natural. But as human beings, we can change nature. Listen, if we accepted nature just as it is, many people would be absolutely dead by now, because we refuse to invest our resources in making nature-altering discoveries like blood transfusions. And the suffering of animals in the wild represents the largest source of suffering in our world by far. So if we can engineer ourselves out of unnecessary suffering, why would we stop there? That's exactly why we must end wild animal suffering. Remember the squirrel we refused to give a pension plan to back in step 1? Now's the time to talk about that. The goal is to eliminate suffering entirely from the world. But Antonio, this is absolutely impossible. How can we possibly step in and save every ecosystem on the planet? We've already changed the genetics of many life on Earth through pollution, climate change, and habitat destruction. We're just changing it accidentally and making things worse. What David is offering is changing it intentionally and making things better. Every piece of technology I'm about to describe already exists within our living world. Step 1. Start with the fast breeders. We'll start with small species like insects and rodents. These animals make babies fast, and their genetic changes can spread through entire populations within just a few generations. Using what we learned from Joe and the SCN9AG, we'll create versions of these animals that still feel immediate pain in risky situations, but don't experience ongoing suffering from starvation, disease, or illness. Step 2. Gene drives. This is where things get really interesting. David speaks of a term called tunable synthetic gene drive. It's basically a way to guarantee that good genetic modification spread through wild populations. Normally, when an animal makes a baby, each baby has a 50% chance of inheriting any given gene from the parent. But gene drives hack the system and guarantee that these genetic modifications get passed on to nearly 100% of future babies. So we'll release a small number of genetically modified insects carrying pain reduction gene, and within a few generations, entire populations would carry these modifications. Step 3. Slow breeding animals. For slow breeding animals like elephants, we need a different approach because they don't have babies as quickly. First, we'll give them temporary birth control, like putting wild populations on the pill for a few years. This isn't permanent, and we can reverse it whenever we want. While they're not having babies, we'll use gene editing to modify their egg and sperm so that when they do make babies again, their children will feel less pain and suffering. Step 4. The carnivore conversion project. Now here's the part that sounds the most impossible, but it's actually the best solution. Are you ready? We make all meat-eating carnivore animals vegan. I know that sounds insane, but please think about it logically. Lions don't choose to kill gazelles because they're evil. They kill because their biology forces them to. If you remove that biological impulse, you basically remove the entire predator-prey dynamic. We'll change 3 things. Their stomach so they can digest plants, their taste buds so they will crave plants instead of craving meat, and their brains so they want to gather veggies instead of hunt. And that's not even the best part. Instead of seeing other animals as food, they'd see them as friends. Imagine lions that protect gazelles instead of killing them, or tigers that play with deers instead of eating them. We'd give them cultured meat during the transition period, but eventually they'd be full-on plant eaters. Step 5. The planetary surveillance network. The final piece of this puzzle is monitoring and management. We need to track every ecosystem on Earth in real time to ensure these modifications are working as intended. Using AI-powered satellite monitoring, drone networks, and environmental sensors, we can observe every cubic meter of this planet. And when we detect suffering, whether it's a disease outbreak, a food shortage, or a failed genetic modification, we can step in immediately. Obviously, you can't start genetically modifying animals from your living room, but there's something you can do right now that's actually ridiculously important to making this vision possible. Here's your actionable step. Ask yourself this question. If I had the power to eliminate an animal's suffering without harming anything else, would I do it? Because if that's possible with science, then there's absolutely no reason to go against that. Debate welcome in the comments down below. Tell me if you think I'm wrong. Our compassion for animals is much smaller than it should be. We care about dogs and cats, maybe elephants or dolphins, but we ignore the vast majority of suffering of other living beings. Of course, there are literally dozens of other ways to create heaven and earth that I've yet to cover in this video. And that's why we have our Discord server going over all of these methods, showing more ancient philosophies, and breaking down the teachings of times that came before us in order to apply it into our daily lives. Literally taking you under our wing, ensuring your success, making sure you belong, etc., etc. And we're giving it away completely for free. All you have to do is to click on the link in the description right now. Now, David Pearce's formula is actually a tiny part of a greater ecosystem. It's part of something called the transhumanist revolution. And let me tell you, this revolution is going to absolutely change the world. Click over here to watch my video explaining it, and I'll see you in the next one.